the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, it's just my dad. My dad. My dad.
Hey y'all, what's going on? This is your man Sabirleen. What's happening? What's popping? I'm gonna tell you what's dropping. Yeah, another episode of Daddy's Right here live. And live, you know I am. A few weeks ago we were doing the show on accountability and how people avoid accountability. That was one of the biggest things, and identified as being some of the reasons behind a lot of the conflicts and confrontations that we have in our society today. And I had started the show, and then the following week I did a show on something else, but I wanted to follow back up on this subject matter because it's a subject matter, man, for me that is not only near and dear to my heart, but um, it's been my experience throughout the years being a husband to four different wives. Yeah, been married four times. About to do it a fifth time. Yeah, I'm a husband. I don't know how to be anything other than a husband. Uh, Even with those encounters that I've had throughout the years, that the relationship didn't come into something that was going to be long standing. There was no future really looked at in these situations, but it was a matter of um, getting a feel for where we were going to go in the relationship, and lo and behold, they didn't go anywhere. But it was always a matter of how do I say? So when you meet somebody, right? You do the adult thing, do what you do, and that's part of how the involvement begins. But what fails to happen in many cases is the evolvement, right? It starts off wrong. You don't have the conversation. You seek to satisfy uh, your own needs, and that's on both sides of the fence. And that's just you look good, you wanted to feel good, and that's what you did. And oftentimes it happened more than once. And because something happens more than once, feelings often get involved. Whether it's by both or one of the parties, there's feelings that get involved in the situation. And we got these alerts are going to like really bug the hell out of me. Hold on a minute, because I hate when these repeated announcements, notifications. I usually turn all the notifications off. But anyway, so you get involved, and um, sometimes people think that they're going in the direction that they're not going. It becomes a matter of we're seeing each other, but this is not going anywhere. We're just having sex from one perspective. The other perspective is this is a relationship. This is a relationship that now we should be uh, just seeing one another. It's not been stated. It's something that's assumed, and then that is segue for conflict because we never discussed that. We just had sex. And in your mind, if having sex with someone implies that there is a beginning of a relationship, it's all downhill from there because you didn't have that conversation. You only assumed that we were in a particular place and this is the place that we were going to be. And it's just always sex. And it sometimes goes on for months and years, but we're just having sex. We haven't planned for the future. We've done some things together. We've spent some time together, but the conversation never happens. So even during the times where it was just us, it didn't mean that it was just us. And somewhere along the line, when the honeymoon period ends of that encounter and things begin to get real, they begin to get real ugly because a lot of assumptions were made, a lot of suppositions were made. And next thing you know, you're at each other's throats and you dislike them. Sometimes that dislike, manifests in different ways within the relationship. And instead of somebody just taking ownership and saying, hey, listen, this is how it started. We didn't have the conversation. Therefore, to assume anything other than, on your part is something that needs to be looked at. I just thought it was sex. I never had any conversation about we going to be just one and this, that, the other. And that's how most situations go. And they go in that way. And a lot of times it happens in these, people call them entanglements, but these situationships, they happen, and then there's a child involved, at some point, because you're having unprotected sex, and you ultimately wind up having a child. And there are a lot of situations that exist in our world today where it was just an encounter, a sexual encounter, and you have a child, and you don't even like each other. You care nothing really about each other. You just enjoy what it is that you're doing together. But then the ugliness comes into play where you start pointing fingers and blaming the other person. And that happens on both sides. It happens on the side of the mother of the child and happens on the side of the father of the child, because it's not always both at the same time who don't feel that there is a relationship between the two of you where a child would be in the best interest. But to have unprotected sex, knowing that there's a possibility that this could happen, and then not confront that behavior of your own when the child comes into play, is what we have the biggest problem with. The lies that you tell, oh, he wasn't this and he wasn't that and she wasn't this and she wasn't that, and therefore that makes that other person a bad parent. And parenting at this point becomes the issue, when the real issue is the fact that the two of you had unprotected sex. That's the issue that has to be addressed first and foremost. First and foremost, that has to be addressed first and foremost. We got together, we had unprotected sex, and now we have a child. We know nothing about each other, seeking not to know anything beyond that which we know. Therefore, how can you possibly make the decision of whether the person is a bad parent or not? It's based on expectations. But until you move past the blame, that same bad information that you have retained within yourself gets passed on to the child. Yeah, that's ultimately what happens. And then you feed the child all of this information because you want to protect your own goodness, right? And this happens mostly for the person, the primary custodial parent, which is usually the mother, begins to have, conversations with the child, and the conversations about the father are usually not good. Well, he didn't do this and he didn't do that, and therefore, this is what I did. But you didn't have the conversation with the father. You didn't sit down as an adult, as the mother of the child, and have a conversation with the father. A conversation, not an argument, not a confrontation, because that's what ultimately happens. You have these confrontations about, well, I'm pregnant now and I got your baby and you need to do this. But you're not looking at the attitude that you're presenting, which is often what causes people to distance themselves. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it doesn't matter until you learn how to have a different conversation with the father. And the father learns to have a different conversation with the mother. It's going to continue this way. And it continues for some well into adulthood because now you have the child who has taken on this attitude toward the other parent who is not the primary custodial parent, but the parent who doesn't live in a household, the parent who is not part of the foundation of building the child. Because the primary custodial parent is the one that feeds the child what they want. It's not a conversation about what we as parents want for our child. It's always what the primary custodial parent wants for the child. And that's what everything is hinged on. The sad part about it is that even the child coming into adulthood or coming into some level of maturity and asking the questions and accepting the reason, because everything is not an excuse. There are reasons for why things happen the way they do. There are reasons for why things are the way they are. But when we keep terming these things as being excuses, then you internalize the conditioning of making excuses for your continued behavior. There's a reason for everything. But as a parent, right, who has given the child information, if you don't take responsibility and clarify things, bring the real truth to things other than the truth that you've created for yourself, the child takes on that same mentality, that same behavior, and begins to blame the other parent for why their life is in the condition that it's in. I hope you're following me here because as confusing as this may sound, right, it's exactly the confusion that so many parents live by. Let's call it what it is. Yes, the mother's the one who always gets stuck with the responsibility of the child, no matter which way this goes. If you are not together as boyfriend and girlfriend and husband and wife, whatever the case is, yes, the mother is always the one who gets stuck with the responsibility of raising the child. But that doesn't give you carte blanche to say to the child things that are going to protect your goodness. Right? It doesn't make either one of the parents a bad parent. We both as adults made a bad decision. We had sex without having any protection. Without any protection, whether it's the first time or the 51st time, we both made that decision together. So the decision of raising the child should be between both parents. You can't talk messy to me and think that I should just take it and continue accepting how you choose to talk to me about something that you were involved in creating as well as I. We both made a mess of this, but it doesn't give you carte blanche to talk to the other person like you're just like some knucklehead on the street. You can't do that. You can't do that. And you can't continue to have the same fruitless conversation and think that things are going to be better. They don't get better. It's all about ownership. It's all about ownership. I've experienced it firsthand. The messiness. Yeah. But it started out messy. And if it started out messy and you turned a blind eye to things and continued to do what it is that you were doing as a responsible thinking adult, now you want to be the responsible one. Now you want to be the one who, who is stable, who's making good decisions. You can't do that. You have to take ownership for the situation. This is what happened. This is what I did. This is the role that I played. Not the role of, well, I did this and I did that because, well, he wasn't this and he wasn't that. There's more things that played out in all that. And until you tell the child the truth, the child has to live their lives with internalized lies. But then the child should begin to mature and begin to ask the right questions if you want to know the truth, so you can be free. Because there's two aspects to this freedom. Part of it is the parent taking responsibility and ownership for what role they played in this happening. How did this happen? How did it happen that the two of us got together, had unprotected sex, and made a child? We knew that was possible. We knew it was possible. And then how did you come to the conclusion that this is what you needed to do to protect yourself so your child wouldn't hate you, but condition the child to hate the other parent? Like, that's an issue for me. It's an issue for me because I dealt with numerous situations where the mothers of my children got involved with me knowing my condition. I was about the street life. I was getting high. I was out there. I was doing what I was doing. I was doing what I was doing. Right? You were doing what you were doing. Did you talk about that? No, but you had a whole lot of conversation about me, about mine. That had nothing to do with parenting. That had everything to do with our failed relationship. That's where the separation has to happen. Because then the conversation becomes, what efforts did you make with the other parent to ensure that the well-being of the child was put first in a psychological sense? Most of what you did was in the physical sense. Parenting is physically and emotionally involved. So if you didn't deal with your own stuff, your own unresolved, well, it's going to play out in whether you take responsibility or not. See, I never talked badly about either one of my children's mothers. Never did. Never did. Right? That's not my role as a parent. That's me putting on to somebody else some stuff that belongs to me. And then the child, right, takes on everything that they've been told, and they have to decipher like what's true and what's not true. And then every time there's an inclination of anything that was said to them about the father, right? Oh yeah, well that, yeah. That's true. But if you're an adult child, and I'm gonna do a show next week on the adult child and the conflict, between the adult child and the parent. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that I found was that I blamed my mother for my circumstance when I was young and stupid, right? I'd say young and stupid because I was out there doing things young. My first child, I was 24. Second child, I was 25. Still a knucklehead. Still, I didn't straighten myself up until I was 34 years old. So I was 34 years old. That's when I straightened myself out. I got off the street, got off the drugs. It's been over 30 years now. Right? So that means during that period of time, I've taken responsibility and ownership for any and everything that I had failed to do, failed to say to anyone. who I had harmed in any capacity. I did that. That didn't mean that the other person's changed. Didn't mean that the other person's changed, right? I was physically available, but not emotionally available to. I wasn't emotionally available to any of my children because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that, right? Physically available, right? I did what I could, what I knew best to do during that period of time of my evolvement into manhood. Into manhood. You understand what I'm saying? Because there's a responsibility that I have. And it's not about just talking the talk, you have to walk it. So if you say that you're a changed person, if you say that you've evolved into some level of functioning that is more guided by spiritual principles and less guided by your unresolved, then you have to be doing it. You can't just talk good Gucci stuff. I don't make a decision as to whether I'm a good father or not. My children tell me whether I am or I am not. And that's based on their own interpretation. Their own interpretation. And I've said this for years. I'm willing to have a live conversation with any of my ex-wives. One who is deceased cannot. But I've always worked hard at ensuring that my responsibilities were taken care of when I crossed that line of becoming a man. And it's the same thing for a woman. If you want to be free from your own demons, you have to seek that. If you want to continue to blame others for your condition, you can do that. I can tell you from my own experience, it got me nowhere. It kept me in the same position, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And the physical aspect of it was the ulcers, the stress level, the high blood pressure, the ongoing irritation, the frustration with things not going right in my life and blaming them on something other than myself and looking at myself. When I stopped doing that and I started taking responsibility, like I stopped calling my children's mother outside of her name. When I stopped calling her outside of her name, me taking responsibility for what I had created, a situation I created, regardless of her role. I created a position whereas I was always going at her. Once I moved past that, stopped calling her outside of her name, our relationship began to improve. But that didn't happen across the board with my children's mothers. That was with one mother, and the other mother never had that kind of conversation. We never sat and had a conversation about what took place between us initially and to date. Didn't happen. Hasn't happened. And that has long-term effects on both of us because there's a truth in there that needs to be passed on to the child. And it's not for me to dictate to anyone when they need to do that. But it's not a good thing when that happens because the child continues on with the thoughts of what they were told and they won't see truths. They'll see expectations. And when expectations aren't met, then that metamorphosizes into something else, which affects every bit of the relationship moving forward. It never changes. It always has fleeting glimpses of success. My father, for instance, I finally connected with him as an adult, and I began to learned about my father. I began to ask questions. I began to see things, right? I began to still have the same expectations. Give me money. Give me money. Give me money. I showed up at his job every pay week and was expected for him to give me money. Then one day he went out the other door as opposed to the door he usually comes out, and then I got it. Like, yo, dude, you just show up and just keep asking me for money, expecting me to give you money, and that's not what this is about. If we're going to have a relationship, we need to have a relationship based on truth, honesty, and trust. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Right? I don't take jabs at him. Well, he's not here now, but I didn't take jabs at him. I didn't take jabs at my mother. I understood her position. Right? He was a violent person when he was drinking. When he stopped drinking, his life got better. When I stopped doing drugs and I stopped being on the street, my life got better. Therefore, the forward progress, the momentum of personal growth and development was able to take place. I had to do that. I had to initiate that relationship. I had to move past some things that I internalized, about my father that were given to me, about him, regardless of what I had seen firsthand, his drunken rages. When he stopped doing that, those things weren't happening. But those weren't excuses for him. Those were, in fact, reasons. The excuse is when you continue to live by a set of values and principles not grounded in truth. But at what point do you surrender and you stop fighting and you start telling yourself, I have a role in this. I can fix this too. I fixed the relationship between me and my father because that's what I wanted. No expectations. No, I don't want you to be dad of the year. I don't want you to be any of those things. Right? I initiated contact. I went by to see him when I got off of work. He didn't have to come see me. Young folks today got it twisted. They want the adult parent, the caretaker, to come to them and to continue to give them something so they can change their belief system within themselves about that other person. And most times they're not seeking that. Most times it's expectations of, I want you to act this way. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I left all of that behind with my mother as well. My mother did the best she could as a parent with what she had. That doesn't mean that she's going to turn around. She's going to do something different. She did what she could. She took good care of us to the best of her ability. Agree or disagree, didn't matter. If it wasn't for her, only God knows where I'd be. She didn't know where I was on many occasions. She always just wanted me to do better. My father, right? Murdered during the course of the time that I was in school, near the end of my master's program. I had in my head, after having formed a relationship with him, that I know that my father would have wanted me to continue school. As much as I wanted to stop, as much as emotional people I was going through, I knew that that's what he would want me to do. When you take jabs at people, parents, because of your dissatisfaction of how you think something should have went between two people who made a bad decision right from the gate, when you continue to take jabs, you're not letting yourself be free. You're not letting yourself be free. And that which is deserving of any human being never happens because you can't let things go, because you want to continue to take jabs, because you want to continue to say little slick things off to the side, because you want to continue to do little slick things, right? For what? All in the name of what? You're not going to bring in a resolve to anything. Your life is still going to be in the same condition. I wanted to have a relationship with my father and I pursued it. I made it my business to do that. I wanted the relationship between me and my mother to improve. I pursued it. She didn't have to do anything different. She's still the same way today that she was then. I had to learn to accept some things. I had to grow up. I had to shake off the boy and start doing some adult things because that's my mother, because that's my father, no matter which way you look at it. And you know when the evidence really shows up? When you ask your children, when you ask your children, how do they feel about your parenting? Ask your children that because they're the only ones that can tell you whether you're a good father or a bad father, good mother or bad mother. They're the only ones that can tell you, right? That doesn't mean that you're going to change them because you desire to have something. That's my mother. I don't have to go to my mother and tell my mother, well, you need to change this, for me to feel better about you and my relationship. That's not how that works. That is not how that works. I've counseled a lot of people, and a lot of people who are well into adulthood carry that mindset that the parent is supposed to do something different. And they're not even looking at themselves as parents and what it is that they're failing to do, how it is that they're treating theirs, but blaming their parents for how they parent. It's a choice. It's a choice. Human beings. We're all human beings. So in this article here, this article is talking about deflecting. And it talks about, I think it's like about 7 or 8 things on this list of how people continue to deflect and not take ownership, not take responsibility for where things are between them and someone else. And because this is daddy's right here, right? Because the focus, the foundation, as you see in the banner, the focus is on becoming physically and emotionally available. And the only way you can do that is by healing, right? And that begins with taking ownership and responsibility for your condition. No doubt in my mind that parental separation has a psychological impact upon the child. No doubt in my mind that it's evident to the child that they've been affected by the separation. But the question is, when do you take responsibility and ownership and start looking at how you can repair this, how you can move forward in your own life? Because at the end of the day, I'm going to still be me. I'm going to still be me. Are you still going to continue to go on with the unresolved in your life that's not going to do you any good? That's going to harm every relationship around you because that's the way you want to continue to be, because you just don't want to take the responsibility. Contrary to what everybody is telling you, contrary to the evidence, you have evidence that speaks to the truth. Why don't you want to accept the truth? That's the question. Why don't you want to accept the truth? Me and your mother didn't have a great relationship. Plain and simple. We were just sleeping with each other. Anything that's said beyond that, right, should be focusing on, hey, listen, my phone is getting ready to die. Listen, we need to have a conversation because we need to free ourselves and we need to free our child from this. Instagram people, y'all gonna lose me in a minute. So the best thing you can do is switch on over to Facebook, to Daddy's Right Here page, to Girlene page. You can also switch over to LinkedIn if we get cut off. But at the end of the day, this is a matter of the responsibility that you have to take as an individual. So the article is Avoiding Accountability, the Art of Deflecting from Responsibility. The article is by Jay Uhas, right? And it's Jan and Jillian is the website that I can pick this article up. The article begins with responsibility is an essential aspect of personal growth and healthy relationships. However, some individuals possess a remarkable skill for deflecting from their responsibilities, evading accountability, and shifting blame onto others. Avoiding accountability can develop from as early as childhood through adult relationships, often stemming from unresolved childhood wounds or feelings of inadequacy. The unfavorable emotion someone feels with avoiding is often rooted in the inability to accept who they are or how they impact others. Whether it's your personal or professional relationship, understanding the signs of deflection can help you navigate hard conversations or uncomfortable situations with clarity and assertiveness. Clarity and assertiveness. You need to be very clear on what transpired. You need to allow that person to tell you that. You need to accept that the person is telling you the truth and not listen to them filtered through the lies and things that were told to you by the primary custodial parent, because that's what you're getting. You're getting that parent's stuff, and when you speak, you're speaking without clarity, and you're not speaking assertively. You're speaking aggressively. Therefore, you're causing more harm to the situation that can most certainly improve if you change and get clarity. And get clarity, right? Because as long as you continue to debate something somebody gives you as the truth, their truth, and sort through it and see the truth. Well, I was told this, you're telling me that. You have to make a decision. But you should be responsible enough to take a look at, hey, well, wait a minute, this is two stories. There's a truth in there. People protect themselves. That's the first thing to do. So number one on here is the blame game. One of the most common tactics used by individuals who deflect from responsibility is blaming others for their choice of words or actions. Instead of accepting their role in the situation or relationship, they point fingers at external factors, circumstances, or other individuals. By doing so, they attempt to absolve themselves of any culpability. It's crucial to recognize this pattern and look beyond the scapegoating. Otherwise, it can be detrimental to the connection. As long as you want to keep pointing fingers, as long as you want to keep saying it was this way, it was this way. No, here's the way it was. Here's the way you see it. You can continue seeing it this way, or you can take ownership and look at how that unresolved has caused you to filter everything in your life through a very negative lens, and you don't want to see the truth. You resist the truth. You become resistant to the truth. The blame game is over. Number two, elaborate excuses. Deflectors are masters at constructing elaborate excuses to justify their behavior. Right? They're already blaming. Now they're going to continue. Well, you weren't there. Okay, no, I wasn't. But now you want to continue to just ride on this bus. And the wheels have already fallen off. You're riding on rims. You see the evidence, but you keep on going. Back to the article. They create an array of explanations, often citing circumstances or events beyond their control. These excuses serve as shields, shielding them from the consequences of their actions. Uncovering these excuses and focusing on the core issue is key to seeking the truth. While it can be fearful for them to admit their mistakes, being vulnerable is crucial. A lot of people don't like to be vulnerable. A lot of people don't want to sit down and say that they're wrong. A lot of people don't want to backtrack and come back up with the truth and clean up all of that mess. Because you can clean up all that mess, especially when you look at your own circumstance. How are you parenting? What are your children saying about you and how you parent? What kind of conflicts and confrontations do you continue to have with your own that provides you with the evidence that there's some unresolved that you need to fix? And blaming somebody else for your condition, your circumstance, is not it. Number 3, minimizing and downplaying. Another common strategy used by those avoiding responsibility is minimizing or downplaying their role. They attempt to make their actions seem inconsequential or less significant than they actually are so they can escape the pain or anxiousness. By doing so, they hope to diminish the impact of their behavior and avoid taking ownership. And so you are no longer upset with them. Recognizing the true magnitude of their actions is essential for holding them accountable. Right? You can't just poke a person and poke a person and poke a person and be petty in your statements to somebody because you don't want to face the reality of things. You're an adult. You have to look at, yes, these things did have an impact, but how can I improve it? What am I doing or not doing that keeps this thing going the way it goes, that keeps our relationship being so contentious? What can I do to change that? Because I guarantee you, if you are seeking the truth, if you are seeking clarity in why somebody was absent, right, wrong, or indifferent, you don't have to agree. That's my truth as the person who's given the explanation. It's up to you whether you want to consider that to be true or not. That's up to you. If you think it's a lie, then where's your evidence? It's all about evidence. This is all about evidence. It's all about what evidence do you have to support what beliefs that you're riding on. Find the truth. Seek the truth out. Don't ride on lies. Don't ride on what you think. Ask the question. Have the conversation. Be open-minded and be willing to accept the information that's given. None of us are perfect. None of us. Number 4, denial and ignorance. Some individuals simply deny any involvement or awareness of a situation altogether. What are you talking about? I didn't say that. I didn't do that. What are you talking about? And that allows them to stay with their thinking because it's always going to be you. It's always going to be something else. It's always going to be someone else. They pretend to be ignorant, claiming that they have no knowledge or understanding of what transpired. What are you talking about? I didn't say that. I didn't do that. This tactic aims to distance themselves from the responsibility, leaving others to pick up the pieces or shoulder the weight of the relationship disconnect. Seeking concrete evidence and establishing clear communication boundaries is crucial for overcoming deflection. You have to want to know what the truth is. You have to want to let that stuff go. You have to want to give the ownership to where it belongs and not continue to pass it off like the other person did. Because parents do that. They make themselves look good. They make themselves be the hero. And the other person automatically becomes the villain. I was the villain in this situation. This is my role. I was the victim in this situation because of what happened here that was not clarified in terms of how it happened and why it continued to happen. And a lot of times you'll see the evidence right in front of you. You'll see the evidence and bypass it. Number 5, diversion and humor. Deflectors often employ diversion tactics using humor or changing the topic to steer the conversation away from their responsibilities. They may crack jokes or make light of the situation in hopes you will forget the issue or laugh about it. Recognizing these diversionary tactics allows you to stay focused on the matter at hand and request accountability. Also, a sign of humor usually shows they are uncomfortable with the topic of conversation, attempting to diffuse tension or divert attention. Right? Again, They're diversionary tactics. You poke and then you withdraw and sit there and act like you're clueless as to what happened. You poke and then you withdraw to act like it's somebody else. It's the way they think. It's the way they see things. And the way other people see things is not important because it's always all about how you see things. 30 years, I counsel people. 30 years. And my own experience has been as such. You can't continue to poke and poke and poke and poke. And then when I clap back, now you're the victim. You're the victim. And we have a lot of our children who do that. Right? A lot of our children do that. You want to keep on doing what you're doing, but you ain't ready for the clapback. Right? But that's just one more thing that you use to continue riding on that bus that you're riding on the rims. You're not riding on the tires because you done blew them out. Number 6, the victim mentality. Some individuals adopt a victim mentality, position themselves as the wrong party to gain empathy. So they look for the rah-rah crowd. They look for the rah-rah crowd, excuse me. They look for the crowd that's going to support them, the crowd that still wants to hold on to old stuff, who don't want to grow up, who don't want to shake off the boy, who don't want to shake off the girl, who want to still be that 5-year-old, that 9-year-old, that 12-year-old, the one who experienced whatever it was that they experienced. They want to still be there. It's a choice. It's a choice to still be there. When you come into adulthood, it's a choice. You know it's a choice. But you stay there. And you want to keep being a victim. And as long as you seek out the rah-rah crowd and you find one person who agrees with you, then you keep it going. But if you know that there was a significant impact that this person's absence, your father, your mother, whoever it was, whatever it was that transpired between you and that parent, right? As long as you want to continue to hold on to that, don't say in the same breath, I want it to get better, when you're not willing to take responsibility and be held accountable for the action that you continue to do to bring harm to that relationship, right? By playing the victim, back to the article, they deflect attention from their own actions and instead redirect it towards their grievances, right? They go right back to their grievances. So you have the opportunity. You have the opportunity, but you want to be the victim, right? And the only thing you keep doing is bringing out the laundry list of this. Well, let's have the conversation. Let's have the real conversation. If you want to be free of this, if you want to know the truth about it. But you need to go to both parents and ask both parents the truth. And if the parents really want the child to be free, both parents should be willing to sit with the child and have the conversation about what transpired so the child then can see there's the ownership from dad. There's the ownership from mom, right? What do I do with that now? Because until that happens, you're going to keep having the same situation over and over again. It's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. And I'm speaking to adult children specifically, because all too often I see it, I hear it, I experience it, right? And that's what it's really grounded in. When a person doesn't want to take responsibility and ownership, they continue to poke because they don't want that person to live their life. They want to always remind that person of how their life is and how they think that the parents should have played a specific role in their life in order for them to have a fruitful life. But they don't see where the resistance that they have, towards the situation right? And continue to just gnaw and gnaw and gnaw at the situation until they get some kind of outcome, right? And they don't want to see the reality in it. They want to stay right where they want it to stay right where it is. And keep saying, well, no, no, you should have. And okay, we done talked about that 99 times. I was watching Dr. Phil the other day, and it like really, really brought forth a lot of things, that I've experienced, that I experienced as a parent, and then that I see other parents experiencing, right? Because they keep being hit over the head for mistakes they made, and the person who's hitting over the head is not looking at they're hitting the overhead with their own mistakes. Their own mistakes. You're going to make mistakes yourself if you have children. You're going to see the truth. You're going to see the truths. There's a reason why the father of your children doesn't want to be dealing with you, right? And you want to blame somebody else for why you're conditioned that way. You have full control and responsibility over everything you say and do. I couldn't continue to walk around for the rest of my life with an attitude towards my father based on a failed relationship he and my mother had, and because he made a decision that he thought was best. She made a decision that was best for leaving him. He made a decision to keep moving on with his life because there was no need for him to go back to that when it was going to be nothing but conflict and confrontation. As the child, I had the responsibility as an adult to say, hey, listen, we make bad decisions. We go into relationships and they're not the best of relationships. And we do what it is that we do. And these are the outcomes. Nothing is a guarantee. Nobody is guaranteed to stay forever. Nobody's going to keep being subjected to you poking at them. Being the parent, being the child, nobody's going to keep accepting it. Plain and simple. That's why we have so many relationships with parents and children where they don't have any kind of relationship. Because nobody wants to keep being poked. Nobody wants to keep being faced with having to hear you go back down the same lane we done been down together to converse about, and you still want to keep bringing it up. You still want to keep poking. You still want to take random jabs and think it's okay. It's not okay. But that's what the person who doesn't want to take accountability desires to have as an outcome. They don't want resolve. They want to make you pay. They want to make you suffer. And then the child wonders why they get cut off. The child wonders why they get cut off. When are you going to let it go? That's the decision I made. You don't have to be okay with it. I had to come to terms with the decisions I made. Your mother had to come to terms with the decision they made. The unfortunate part in there is that all too often people want to protect themselves and make themselves look like they were the good parent because they were the primary custodial parent. They were the ones who had to wake up in the middle of the night to your cries, to your pain and your suffering, your difficulty about the absence when there's more to it, right? Because both parents have the responsibility of making sure that the truth is given to the child so the child can be free. But the other part to it is the child has to want to be free themselves and know that they protect themselves in situations where others got impacted, negatively impacted. They protect themselves. You're doing it now by deflecting. You're doing it now by victimizing other people but claiming to be the victim in situations. You're doing it now. Number 7 on that list, shifting focus. Those adept at deflecting often attempt to shift the focus onto others by flipping the script or using word jargon to take the target off of them. They redirect attention to someone else's behavior or take you down a rabbit hole of all the things you have done that hurt them, creating a diversionary tactic to avoid confronting their own responsibilities. Okay, this happened. I know this happened. I admit to my role in it. I speak to my role in it. I apologize for my role. But yet, that's not enough for you. It's not enough for you. They want more. They want more. They want to impose upon you the same difficulty, the same challenges, physically and spiritual and emotional. They want to impose those same things upon you. That's being vengeful. And it's unnecessary. Because only thing you're doing is deepening the wounds of what happened, or what didn't happen, or what was said, or what didn't get said. You're just deepening the wound. You're prolonging your own suffering. Suffering is an option. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You can fix all of that you have within you by confronting you. But as long as you can continue to shift focus, as long as you continue to take people down that rabbit hole, oh, and I remember and I it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. And you're going to find yourself by yourself. And that's what ultimately happens. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. You're in relationships yourself, and you see the condition of your relationships with others. Why is that? Have all your relationships been successful? Well, why are you in another one? If the first one was successful, right? We all have these relationships with people, and they fail for a variety of reasons. I don't have any animosity towards my exes. As a matter of fact, we're still sociable, except for the one who's deceased. But up until her dying day, we didn't have animosity between us. We didn't have animosity between us, right? Two good people, a situation didn't work out. Sometimes things don't work out. They just don't. And you should know that now as an adult. Sometimes things don't work out. And you have to move on with your life. You have to do what you have to do. And sometimes if you look at you, you'll see that you are the reason. No matter how many times I've been married, each one of those relationships was always a learning lesson for me, a learning curve for me to say, hey, I'm an enabler. I enable people. I allow people to do what they do, confront it. I'll become the bad guy because I'm confronting it. It goes on and on. Loyalty is important to me. Trust is important to me. How you talk to me as a man is important to me. Right? And if those things are not appealing, those things will be the end all for any relationship. For me. Doesn't mean that because I didn't get that I have to beat you over the side of the head because it's over. No. Move on. You move on. You shift the focus You shift the focus, right, from being on the failed relationship, right, as girlfriend, boyfriend, husband and wife, whatever it was. You shift it now to parenting. How do we parent? How do we ensure that we participate as parents? Right? You have to have a relationship with the new person. You know the old person. You know the person who you slept with. You know the person who parted ways from you. That's the person that you know. And that's the only person that you will know. Because you don't know anything about the other person. You never knew anything about the person for real. You just slept with them. In most cases, you slept with them. Period. Number 8, the art of evasion. Deflectors are skilled in the art of evasion. They avoid answering direct questions by providing vague responses or entirely sidestepping the issue. Their evasive tactics aim to confuse and redirect the conversation, preventing any meaningful dialogue or relationship resolution. By asking discovery questions or setting boundaries, you can gain greater clarity on meaningful answers or mutual agreements to prevent repeated patterns, right? You can prevent these things. You're an adult. It's time to grow up. It's time to take responsibility and fix those things that you can. You can have a conversation with the parent who you're having the difficulty with. You can. But don't forget about the person, the primary custodial parent, because they're not exempt. Everybody tries to play that role of, well, I didn't, what? He left. She left. Why? What happened between the two of you? How did y'all come to the point of separation? How did y'all get together? Okay, that's how you got together. What questions did you ask? Why didn't you use protection? How was it you made this decision to do this and to do that? See, people avoid these kind of things because they don't want to drudge up old stuff, because that's what it begins to be termed as, especially when you're confronting the other parent. Because a lot of times that conversation never happens because the child is so busy looking at, well, this person had got me clothes. This person got me this. This person was there when I woke up. This person was there at this event, this, that, and the other. This person wasn't. Well, this person was there, but they weren't there in the same capacity because, well, we don't live together. So capacity is going to be different. Well, why don't we live together? Well, because that wasn't the plan. Why? Well, neither one of us made that decision that we should live together. Neither one of us, wanted that. Neither one of us wanted. So you got to move on with your life. So the primary custodial parent lives their life. They make all the plans with the child, with the stepdad. They make all those plans. When a parent who doesn't live there, attempts to have those things, listen, they can't stop the life of the primary custodial parent. They can't tell that no. So then you got to use the courts, because obviously we weren't civil enough to have a conversation to say, hey, listen, we're going to move on because this, because this is not changing. This is not getting any better. So I don't want to talk to you anymore, because I'm not going to allow you to keep yelling and screaming at me, keep badgering me, keep taking us down that rabbit hole every time we have a conversation. I'm trying to fix it. You're not. You want to hold on to old stuff. But let's go back to, where did we meet? At the club. What happened? You dropped it like it was hot. We went home. We did what adults do who are attracted to each other. Now we're in this situation. Now we have a child. How do we explain it to the child? How do we fix this for the child? How do we help the child? None of these conversations happen. And if they do, look at how they happen. If another parent is not involved, they're not involved for a reason. They're not involved for a reason. Some are just not involved. They don't want to be involved. They never should have had kids. Plain and simple. They should have never had children. They don't want the responsibility of children. That's not the case. That's how so many fathers get wound up as being labeled as deadbeat dads, because the mother beats them dead. They do everything they possibly can. They get a new girl. I don't want my kids around your girlfriend. I don't want my kids around your new dude. Okay, so what are we going to do? Are we going to fix this? Are we going to get together? No, that's not the idea either. So what is the idea then? We got to be parents. How do we be parents? How do we be civil towards one another? And civility is not just like, I'm going to close my mouth whenever I'm around that person. That's not just civility. So part of civility is taking responsibility and ownership for a role that you played and why we're not together as girlfriend and boyfriend, as husband and wife. Why we are having such a difficult time in parenting. It's not co-parenting when the child just lives with the other parent and there's no involvement that's initiated, that's established between both parents. The relationship still has to be mended. There still has to be some level of communication. All too often, relationships are just that. We're not together. You and I don't go together. We never did. There's no sense in me having a conversation with you. So you can call your child. Then when I call to talk to the child, it's an attitude. Why are you calling? Your dude is upset. Your woman is upset because you called him. Well, I have a child there. Or you allow your dude to tell you, nah, it ain't gonna be this. See, those are conversations that don't get had, right? When you allow this dude to tell you, well, nah, it ain't gonna be none of that. I'll take care of you and that child. He don't need to. No. And no dude should be having that conversation. And how a woman even wants to be with a man who doesn't pursue having a relationship with his child because he can't move past his unresolved with her. It's a whole big thing here when it comes to, taking accountability. You can't continue to avoid accountability, taking responsibility for the things that you need to as a parent. As a parent, you can't continue to avoid those things. I don't care how old the child is. I don't care how old the child gets. Somewhere along the line, you have to see what that child continues to go through because they're not growing through it. They're not taking responsibility to grow through it, especially if you continue to nurture the thinking that they have come to have all in the name of you protecting yourself. You can't. It happens. I experienced it firsthand. It happens. And the question is, at what point in time do you sit down and say to yourself, right, what can I do to fix this? You can't keep pointing fingers. You can't keep poking. You can't. You can't keep throwing shade. You can't keep taking shots, right? Either you're in it or you're out of it. Because what you ultimately wind up doing is you ultimately wind up putting yourself out. That makes you feel better because then you can still blame. Well, he never did nothing different. Well, he didn't, or she didn't. Well, my mother never called. Y'all got it twisted in this new age, right? Y'all got it all twisted. Like y'all don't call your parents in this age. Y'all don't call your grandparents. Y'all not the ones who initiate things with the senior members of the village because you think that you know it all, that you got it going on. That's not how that works. I call my mother. It's not long drawn out conversations. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? My mother and I don't, exchange I love yous often. She didn't raise me that way. Doesn't mean that we don't love each other. I had to come to understand what she went through as a child, how she grew up, what her household was look like. She did the best she could as a mother. I'm supposed to say it wasn't enough. I'm going to blame her for why I dropped out of high school. I'm going to blame her for why I got on drugs. I'm going to blame her for why I went to the streets. I'm going to blame my father for that. Why? Why would I blame them? I know right from wrong. I know that if I didn't continue going to school, that I wasn't going to get a diploma. I knew that. I knew that being in the streets wasn't a good idea because it was a good chance that I would wind up dead or in prison. I knew that. I knew that if I didn't stop using drugs and I didn't get off the corner selling drugs, that what the end result was going to be. And I stopped and I ain't been back since. But the question is, how long do you want to keep suffering? How long do you want to keep allowing your children to suffer, not knowing the truth? After that, it's entirely up to them. It's entirely up to your child now. But if there are truths that you are concealing, right? If there are lies that you are still spewing, you are keeping your child just as much in hostage mode, in crisis mode, than they are, because you're feeding it. At what point in time do you tell the truth? At what time do you, as a child, seek the truth? Listen, I just wasn't going to go through it. I missed my father. And because I missed my father, and I didn't find that out until I was doing a fourth step. Yeah, when I started the recovery process back in 1994. Yeah, and I started writing about my dad, and I started crying. For the first time in my life, I cried. Like, yo, I missed my dad. And I immediately formed a relationship with him. We went to the Million Man March together. I just got clean. I got clean April 17th, 1994. The Million Man March was in September. I went with him. September of 94, 95, whatever year I got the hat. But it says I was there. That was our first outing together. That was the first time him and I got together. And it wasn't me looking at him like, well, Dad, what you... No. I was just glad to be with my father. And we just had conversations. Nothing deep. We didn't have to dig down into anything. If he felt the need to bring those things up, I allowed him to do that. And when he brought him up, we talked about it. I didn't feel the need to pursue anything about a failed relationship between him and my mother. That wasn't important. But if there was a question that I had, I'd ask the question. But it wasn't like, being deep about it, right? So the freedom is yours. But just know that you can't continue to poke, throw shade, and take jabs at a parent who did the best they could, who is still doing the best they can. Your job as the adult child is to move past that stuff and accept the fact that when you have children, you'll have your experience with children. You'll have your experience with a failed relationship. You'll have experience with a person who don't want to be bothered with you because of your attitude, not their attitude, your attitude. Because the relationship can change. I'm evidence of that. The relationship can change. You have to want it to change because it ain't about you. It's about the child. As an adult, it's about you being responsible and you pursuing clarity on what happened between you and the other parent, between both parents. But don't just go to the parent who you have issue with. Go to the parent who you praise and you put up on a pedestal because they was always there. That came to you. You. What did you come to me for? What did you come to me about? Did you come with an expectation? And that if the expectation wasn't met, you were still going to be just the way you were going to be and do whatever it is that you was going to do any damn way? What was the point? That's not what you really want. You want to fight. You want to debate everything. It's disrespectful, is what it is. It's disrespectful. None of us are perfect. None of us are going to do for our children what our children think we should do. We're going to do the best we can as parents. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. As parents, we have to make decisions. As human beings, we have to make decisions whether we want to stay in a particular relationship or not. That's life. But your life is going to continue to be a struggle until you change how you think. Until you change how you think. Right? It's just, you can't keep, well, you can, but you won't be free. If you don't want the relationship, don't want it. Move on. Move on. That's your choice. Move on. The same choice that we as parents made when we were trying to fix things between one another, when we were trying to do the best that we could, and we weren't afforded that opportunity in many cases because of the unresolved about the failed relationship. I cheated. Okay. Now what? Move on. You still mad a year, 2 years from now because somebody cheated on you? That ain't gonna be the first and last. Right? You still mad because what? You don't even know if the other person is telling you the truth about their own unresolved for why they're not together with your father. They're not with your mother. That's something that they haven't even resolved. But you didn't get that part. You didn't get that part because you didn't care. When you want to know the truth, go have the conversation and have the conversation with both parents. Because if a parent is telling you that your father was in this or your father was in that, or your mother was in this or your mother was in that, ask them, okay, so why were you with her? Excuse me. Why were you with him? Why were you with her? And especially if what they're telling you is not consistent with what you've come to know. You rather, oh, yeah, you're fake, you're a fraud, you got this going, that going on, you wasn't it. Wait a minute, where did you get that from? Where's your evidence to say that I'm a fraud, that I'm a fake? You got family over here, you doing this, and you ain't. Where's your evidence? Because if the other parent is willing to be truthful and honest about how everything transpired and about anything that transpired after the pregnancy that you weren't told, you need to ask yourself, if you find one inconsistency in there, there's more. There's more. And you know there's more. Do you want freedom from this baggage that you want to continue to drag around? Or do you want to continue to poke and throw shade and take shots? Because that makes you comfortable. Remember, it comes back on you one way or another. It comes back on you. I formed a relationship with my father after not having had one with him most of my life. My mother didn't keep me away from him. He was an alcoholic in my younger years, and I didn't want to be around him. I saw what that did. Well, he wasn't an alcoholic anymore when I came to see him. He drank. He didn't drink much. But my mother also told me some things about him that I didn't know. Like he never drank when they met. He wasn't a drinker. When he started drinking, well, when she got pregnant, things changed. I don't know what changed for him. Making him start drinking and became an alcoholic. I don't know. I didn't have to ask. Why would I drudge up that pain for him? Because it had to be difficult for him to change and become who he became at that point. I thank God that when he died, that he was no longer abusive, no longer an alcoholic. That's his freedom. My freedom was that I established a relationship with him. Why'd I have to spend the rest of my life wondering about my father? Right? The woulda, shoulda, coulda. No, I had a relationship with him before he was murdered. I thank God for that. I still talk to my mother frequently. Frequently for me is maybe once a month. Sometimes it may be once every 2 months. That's the relationship we have, but we have one. I'm not disrespectful to my mother. She says whatever she has to say. I listen. I don't have to agree nor disagree. I listen because that's my mother. Because that's another human being who has thoughts, feelings, and has her own unresolved that she has had to deal with her life, being a single mom, and the reason behind who she, why she is who she is. That's who she is. You can't change anybody. You can't even change yourself. But look at those things, man. Because this is a serious matter. Because we got kids out on the street today, man. Like, and their parents have no idea where they are. And their parents are not even trying to fix those relationships. They're blaming. They're blaming. They're blaming somebody else while their child is in the street, while their children wind up in prison. They're blaming. They're blaming. My mother didn't blame anybody. I wanted to be in the street. I didn't blame her for why I was in the street. I wanted to be there because I didn't want to be in the house. Sure, she whooped my behind. Oh, yeah. But that wasn't what sent me to the path that I took. I wanted to do what I wanted to do as a child. Some point in time, you have to shake the boy off. You have to shake the girl off. You have to be responsible for your own life. You're going to screw up everybody else's because you just want to be that way. Take a look at that. Take a look at that today. The relationships that you have, and how healthy they really are not because of your attitude. Because of your attitude. You think the way you think because of who you surround yourself with, because of what you surround yourself with. Right? I ain't got no music for y'all today, man. It's been an eventful morning this morning, and I didn't get a opportunity to set everything up. I've been doing a lot for the last few months since I've retired, and establishing this online business, looking at grants, looking at loans, getting the nonprofit back on its feet. Excuse me, and moving forward with that and stuff like that. But that's just something that's been laying on my heart, laying on my spirit. This particular subject matter, and then watching some of these court cases, people taking their siblings to court for stupid stuff, and divorce court, and watching the stupidity, that happens when it's just a conversation. Have the conversation. That's all. Just have the conversation. There's no sense in me going into all this shenanigans. If I don't trust you, I need to make a decision. Right? If I have some issue with you, then I need to make a decision. I need to have a conversation with you. But I'm not going to mistreat anybody. I'm watching, Dr. Phil and all this kind of stuff that goes on with, lady's son in his 30s, and he's still not working, never kept a job, and she's mad at him. Well, you allowed it. You allowed it. You allowed a grown behind man to bring his family, his wife, and his kids to your home because he wasn't working, because you didn't want to see your grandchildren in the street. But those are things he has to live with. You can't keep beating him upside the head, tell him he needs to get a job, and you condition them to be that way. Now, I'll take the kids if that's what it's about. I'll take the kids. I'm not taking you and your wife. You're a grown-ass man. There's a lot of grown women and grown men out there who are still pointing fingers at their parents for why their life is in the damn condition that it's in. Your life is in the condition that it's in because of your attitude, not because of something somebody did to you. Not because the president of the United States, the governor, or anybody else did it. You're doing it. You want your life to improve? You do something about it. Don't blame somebody else. Nobody's ever stood my way of progress than me. I've been in my way. And when I got the hell out of my way, my life got better. When I stopped blaming people and start taking ownership, for the direction my life had gone in and where it's going. Listen, I'm not in my way today. So I don't have the excuse. I was, getting hot, and I was, I was about that life. And so, come on, man. That was an excuse. That was an excuse. I did my best when I was getting high, and I'm doing my best when I ain't. Right? 30 years. Yeah. Right. So what's up to you? If you don't have a good relationship, or you don't have the kind of relationship with your mother or father that you want to have, that you think you should have, maybe it's time for you to change. Maybe it's time for you to do something different, right? Maybe it's time for you to have a different conversation. Maybe you need to change your thinking. You pick up the damn phone and have a conversation. And hey, how you doing? I just called to check on you, see how you doing. Hey, yeah, I'm doing okay. And let it grow, let it build. But you're not going to change anybody. You're not going to make somebody be the way you want them to be, because that's what's going to make your life happy. If you're miserable, you're miserable. Ain't nothing going to change that. You want to be miserable, right? So again, that's been something that's been laying on my spirit. I wanted to get back to that because I started the conversation a couple of weeks back on accountability, and then I moved on to other subject matter. But listen, it's all about what you do. I gave you the 8 things that they have listed for how people avoid accountability. If you're in one of those relationships, it ain't going to change. You're not going to change it. You can't love it away. You can't sex it away. You can't gift it away. That's your choice for being the way you are. Stop running around looking for the rah-rah crowd for somebody to say, oh, yeah, well, my mother wasn't there for me either. My mother treated me this way. My mother treated me that way. My father wasn't there for me either. He did this and he did that, and he don't do this and he don't do that. Well, he ain't going to do what you think he should do. Who are you that he has to change for? What doesn't change is the fact that that's your father, that that's your mother. That won't change. My mother and I don't, ain't big on hugs. We give each other hugs. We ain't seen each other. I mean, hey, how you doing? We don't. Hey, I love you. No, we don't. That doesn't mean we don't love each other. Because we do. I just understand my mother. That's all. I'm not trying to change her. That's my mother. I'm not trying to change what she should have, would have, could have, all that. No. She did the best she could. She did that pretty damn good job. I ain't stupid. I did a lot of stupid things. But you start seeing. You start seeing through a different lens when you take ownership for what it is that you're doing or not doing in that relationship. There's a lot of people who I talk to who they just not phone people. They don't pick up the phone and call. That don't mean they don't love me. That don't mean they don't care about me. Right? And every once in a while we cross paths. Hey, how you doing? Good. It's good to see you. And we exchange those words and we keep it moving. Right? When you know that somebody loves you, you know they love you. When you try to find every reason in the world, right, to say that they don't, well, that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for resolve. When you keep poking and no, you didn't. Well, I see they got this and they got that. And well, they're going here and they're going, I didn't get that. That's you going down that rabbit hole. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be anywhere other than. That's where you choose to be. Plain and simple. When you don't want to be there, you leave that space. Right? And I'm saying this to the parents. Don't let your child keep taking you there. Don't let your child keep taking you down the rabbit hole and you feel some level of obligation because they're your child that you allow them to take it. No, you ain't got to go down the rabbit hole. Bye. When you decide that you want to be a responsible thinking and acting adult, then give me a call. Other than that, hey, it is what it is. Because you make a choice to be there. I'll be arguing with you and debating with you and going back and forth with you. You're a damn adult now, and you still in the same thing. How you think that's going to change? What, you want me to say something specifically? What? No amount of sorries in the world is going to change what happened. And some people are stick with just that statement and don't give an apology. It was what it was. That's how I grew up. That's what I gave the best that I could. That's it. Then some will, I'm sorry, whichever way you get it, it is what it is. That is your father. That is your mother. That is how things happen. If you think that I'm proud of how things happen, then you're going to think that I can't change that. Excuse me. I can't change that. We have too many of these things, man. We have too many children dying before their parents. We have too many relationships where the parents and the children are at odds with one another because a child, you're a damn child. I don't care how old you get. You are a child. Excuse me. You're a child. You're still my child. Period. I don't care how old you get. You will still be my child. You will still be a child, and you will show me respect. And if you don't show that respect, then I am moving on. Because I'm not going to allow it. I don't allow it from anybody. I don't allow it from anybody to keep taking jabs, to keep poking and keep poking and poking. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And no parent is going to accept it. Plain and simple. You want a better relationship with your mother, with your father, you pursue it. Don't expect for the other person to like, oh, listen, if I knew better, I would have done better. Right? I gave you what I got. I did the best I could. And I'm not going to change this because it'll make you happy. Because it never will make you happy, because there will always be something that person wants from you. They will always keep giving, oh, I want you to do this then. I want you to do that then. Well, if you do this, then maybe I'll, no. Either you do or you don't. We don't need to keep having the same conversation over and over again. We can have the conversation one time. This is what happened. This is how things went the way they went. This is what was going on in that point in time for me in my life. This is why I made this decision. And so we don't have to keep revisiting it because you don't want to just move on. You don't want to let things go because you want to still hold on to the same thing. No person, no human being should have to be subjected to that. And we have a lot of that goes on. I can tell you how many conversations I had in counseling sessions. Well, he doesn't need to do a damn thing. You need to pick up the phone. You need to pick up the pen and paper and write a letter. Once you had that conversation, it's no point in revisiting it over and over again. It's not going to make things any better. It's going to actually make things worse. And it's going to widen the gap. And it says that. All right, boo-boo, right there. It's just going to widen the gap. That's all it's going to do. It's going to widen the gap between you and the parent. That's all it's going to do. Just like it does in your relationships with anybody else, right? People get the hell away from you. And you don't get no special privilege because you're the child to keep doing that kind of stuff. Nobody's going to accept that. Nobody's going to accept it. If you feel that way, don't call. Don't communicate. But don't give some false hope. Because a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times that's what happens. The parent thinks that we've moved past that stage, only to find ourselves right back in the same position because you want to keep going down this rabbit hole. Excuse me, y'all. My throat is dry. I've been drinking a coffee, running my mouth, drying my throat out. Listen, life is too short. Life is too short. It can end right now. If I died right in this moment, right, I know within myself that I did the best I could for my children. Plain and simple, with what I have. 30 years ago was much different than it is today. I know that. There's some who won't let you forget things, be it the child or the parent of the child. Some mothers just won't let stuff go. Some fathers just won't let stuff go. And when they see you move on and being happy, they dig in. They dig in and they come with the theatrics. They come with the shenanigans. They come with the drama. Like, move on. Move on. Ain't about you. It's about the child. And as the adult child, move on. You want to fix it? Let's have the conversation. Let's have a real conversation. Let's have a real conversation, because oftentimes what we do is we give, as parents, we give the toned down version, because we want to work things out, right? So we avoid saying anything about the other parent because that's just senseless. But if all you want to do is believe the other parent, it's nothing that the parent in front of you is going to tell you that's going to change that, because that's what you want to believe. It's your freedom. Make the change. I'm your host, as always, De-Flect-Ing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, listen, we got a whole... that you can get right now, aleemforyou.net. We have undercut everybody's prices. And when I say everybody's prices, I've done cost reviews. I've seen what people are charging for the same exact product. Boots, jackets, shower curtains, bath mats, comforters, everything. We've undercut everybody's prices. Nobody can touch us price-wise. Nobody. I'm telling you for a fact. Nobody. Yeah. Y'all have a great day. Listen, y'all could be doing anything else on a Saturday morning than listening to me. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your continued support. And I thank you even more for taking this information, and even if it doesn't apply to you, give it to somebody else so they can find some freedom within themselves, man. Because this show is about facilitating personal growth and development. And I get it for me too. I have my growth moments in these shows too. I get new information and I continue to grow myself as an individual, right? So if you see any kind of value in any of these shows that can help you or anyone else, send people to the De-Flect-Ing Educational Station on YouTube, right? It's over 200 videos. Yeah, over 200 videos that anybody can watch on demand. Click it up. Invite friends over. Invite family members over. Watch it with your boyfriend. Watch it with your kids. And ask your kids questions. Stop parenting without input from the child, because the children need to know how you're doing too. They're the ones who tell you that you're a good mother. They're the ones who tell you that you're a good father. I'm a good person. I do the best I can. My children would, let me know, hey, Dad, thank you. Right? You're a good dad. You're this, that, and the other, you know what I'm saying? Hey, we like to hear those things too. We don't always want to be told what you didn't do, what you should have did when I was coming up. Okay, I didn't do it. I can't change that. I'm sorry. I did what I could. Y'all have a great day. Peace.